I believe there's a hero in all of us that keeps us honest, gives us strength, and finally allows us to die with pride. Well, maybe pride might not be the best word for my death, or anything I do in fact. Still, if a hero is what the world needs, I'm gonna give it to them. But just like Spider-Man pulls his punches so he won't tear his enemy's jaws right off, I must limit myself. So let's beat the 2004 Spider-Man 2 story without any web attacks and see how that goes. But what's better than saving the city once? Saving it twice! That's why it's called Spider-Man 2 after all. A couple days after I finished the no web attacks challenge, I got a suggestion to beat the game without using any upgrades. That felt like such a good idea that I decided to dive back in and see how that goes. So for the first playthrough, no web attacks. On my second playthrough, there shall be no upgrades. Let's go see if the city can survive me playing hero twice in a row. What better way to begin a heroic adventure than ignoring the city's welfare and instead watch a trailer for another game? X-Men Legends! It looks like it's gonna be quite the game. I just gotta wait till fall 2004. It's gonna be a bit of a wait, but I'm excited. In order to pass the time waiting, I'll stop a gang of thugs trying to steal this woman's briefcase. They're not much trouble to subdue, but I really need to make sure the villains learn their lesson. Relax. Spider-Man doesn't kill, so this guy isn't dead. But I doubt he'll ever be able to move or even form a coherent sentence again. Good thing New York is a hellhole, so there's dangerous crime around every corner. I mean that. Everywhere I turn is crime. Peter narrated at the beginning of this that the city's been quiet lately, but if every 5 seconds I'm being directed towards a violent crime, I have to wonder what the city looks like when it's not being quiet. All these people crying for help really get in the way of the time I like to spend web slinging, because I must say, the one thing about this game that really holds up after all these years is the web slinging. It allows me to traverse the city with almost as much joy as the modern Spider-Man games. But even better, this one allows me to grab balloons floating away from crying kids. Oh, I never give the kid back the balloon, of course. It's mine now. I'm the one with the amazing spider powers. I'm the one that deserves the balloons. A small perk of being a hero, and I'll take the sobbing of the kids as a sign that they're envious of my greatness. I'm truly an amazing role model. If only these inadequate art thieves had me as a role model, maybe they'd be better at thieving. Instead, the only art they're stealing is the memories of me in action as I bust their faces open. While they sleep off the amazing gift of my presence, I'm introduced to Black Cat. Curious as to why she's here, Spidey gives chase, though he doesn't seem too committed to catching her with how much he lets her run by him. Add on to that, my controller disconnects, as does my spine, since that happens mid-jump far above the street. But at last, Black Cat takes a breather, chats for a second, and then chucks herself off this skyscraper. Peter, naturally, does absolutely nothing and just lets this happen. Great hero work, Pete. Time for work at the Daily Bugle. Most people know that Peter Parker is an ace photographer, but you may not know that a good deal of his work is also spent staring creepily at all his coworkers for long, unending minutes. As Spider-Man, he doesn't get much socialization where he isn't chasing or punching people. So this is what happens when those options are no longer available. But while I do enjoy damaging the fabric of society, there are giant rhino men that need to be dealt with. The rhino doesn't even hit hard, and he's quite slow, so there's not much trouble avoiding his attacks and stunning him into extinction. Plus, once he's strung up, he makes a great punching bag. I'm starting to get why Jonah thinks I'm a menace. One thing I will never get, though, is what this was all about. These military dudes keep popping up and doing crimes, like with Rhino, making Spider-Man's life harder, but nothing ever comes from it. They keep doing it right when Peter needs to get somewhere, so I'm just convinced it's to ruin his personal life. What odd, petty villains. While investigating a jewelry store break-in, this is the second time I encounter the Black Cat and give chase once more. Catching up to her, I demand the jewels back, and she simply says she doesn't have them. Well, if the masked woman who is constantly around all these thefts says she has nothing to do with the crimes, then of course we should believe her and let her fling herself off another skyscraper. Great detective work, Peter. I'm on my way to face off with Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, in a series of contests to prove Spider-Man isn't a fake. Gotta say, upon meeting Quentin, I thought I was going up against Dr. Octopus from the comics. But I guess Peter's villains share not just the hobby of wanting to kill him, but also the same fashion sense. So far, the combat has been pretty straightforward, and while I missed the use of webs, it hasn't been impossible. Mysterio's first challenge ruins all of that. For some reason, the city decided it was okay if a bunch of convicted felons were allowed to run wild in this arena, as long as Mysterio and I compete to see who can capture more of them by knocking them into these 3 holes. I know they're dangerous criminals, but I don't see how brutally beating them all, while they don't even try to defend themselves, is going to prove anything but that we're monsters. But Spider-Man can't have his name tarnished, so these criminals must suffer. Only problem is, I'm supposed to fling the criminals into their holes using webs, something I'm obviously forbidden from doing. Mysterio often grabs 2 criminals at a time, but I'm over here giving 1 guy at a time serious brain damage, all while failing to make headway in moving them. Getting the prisoners to ragdoll the right direction in a timely manner just isn't working, and I experience failure after failure to Mysterio. Finally, I just restart the mission so I can upgrade more. I spend my hero points to earn a few more abilities that will hopefully prove useful and make my way back to Mysterio's competition. Unfortunately, it becomes clear immediately that these abilities are even less reliable, as the timing on them is incredibly difficult when all these criminals are scattering like roaches in the light. I don't catch a single one, though I accept that there's no other way and resort to web work. I still lose, as I resorted to webs way too late, but the next attempt using my webs is child's play, and I'm able to catch 15 criminals, 14 of which I had to use webbing to catch. Turns out I didn't need to catch that many, as Quentin only catches 12, with the extra just falling in on their own, and not counting for either of us. In order to ensure that I was using the minimum number of webbing, I restarted and tried again, this time losing because I was too reluctant to web, but winning barely the next try at 13 web uses this time, which seems to be the minimum I can luck into, since it's such a struggle to knock any in the old-fashioned way. All this just to prove to Mysterio that I am a superhero, which feels like a misuse of my time when the city is facing an endless deadly crime wave that I could just prove I'm a hero by stopping. Much better if I spend my time rescuing people from falling and show them the wonders of web slinging as we bond high above the city. I'm really putting the friendly neighbor in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. While racing to Mary Jane's play, those military thugs from before begin blowing things up, once again in the nick of time to ruin Spider-Man's life. Extra so as they have a sniper covering them that rips away my health. I survive by the skin of my teeth and have to hop after a fleeing truck. Catching up to them, I watch in amusement as this one thug struggles to get out of the car. I do try to help him escape, but gravity always brings him right back in, so I guess it's just his fate to spend the rest of time inside this truck. Just as it's Spider-Man's fate to always be late and cause his loved ones to turn their backs on him. At least Black Cat is here to be my friend. Though her friendship means I get shot and killed while trying to stop thieves, so I think I prefer being alone. More and more enemies are packing guns, so my lack of ranged attack options are starting to catch up to me. But if I keep rushing between them and knocking them high into the air, I can keep myself from becoming too holy, only for both Black Cat and the statue to vanish. I'm sure she just took it to polish it for the police, right? Mysterio is back, and this time he's using robots to do his dirty work as he pretends to be leading an alien invasion. It's an awful plan, but it does very nearly lead to my death as the robots blast me. I tried to flee the scene, but it seems Spider-Man is really big on responsibility and not leaving a bunch of people to die in a fire? Who knew? If I'm going to die, I might as well go down fighting. Rushing back in, I stay on the move, making it difficult to target me. That is enough to save everyone, but Peter still refuses to leave if the robots are functioning. Really pushing that Parker luck. Attacking each of the robots, I barely stay above the flames, and thankfully, hitting the robots keeps them from fighting back. Somehow, I do survive all of that only with a sliver of health remaining, but I'm not finished yet as I must hurry over to the Statue of Liberty and disable Mysterio's projections. It's not easy to get in melee range of his devices, but he was kind enough to leave a bunch of elevators far below that takes me right back up into range so I can ruin his plan. It's very convenient of him. Still, I'm not safe as the chase continues into Mysterio's lair full of killer clown punching bags. Cause sure, why not? That might as well happen. Still, that sliver of health holds as I counter all their attacks. But going into the bowels of the lair, I'm attacked by terrifying Spidey duplicates. Within a heartbeat, I'm overwhelmed, and the checkpoint puts me right back into this moment, this time with full health. Health I desperately need as I strive to break all the mirrors spawning the Nightmare Spideys. Since they never stop spawning, I ignore them despite their painful pleas for attention, and I barely manage to pull through before they can restart me yet again. Only to find Mysterio isn't even here? I didn't just physically and emotionally get scarred by murder clown bags and deformed spider reflections just for him to escape, did I? Phooey. Good thing every random crime I solve drops a health pack for me, or I'd never last in this rotten city. Especially when notable scientist Otto Octavius has his project to build self-sustaining energy go awry, and I have to shut it down before it kills more than just his wife. More importantly, before it kills me, as the energy fluctuates and ragdolls me repeatedly. Once again, I barely survive, though the good doctor has been transformed into the sinister Doctor Strange. Oh, sorry, that name is already taken, I hear. I mean Dr. Octopus. He attacks the bank that Peter and his Aunt May just happen to be at, and I hurry to save the day. Between his 4 metal arms and every one of his henchmen packing grenade launchers, I instead hurry right into the grave. Trying again, I focus on eliminating his goons first, and then I try to break the Doc's defenses. I'm supposed to web his arms down before I try to hurt him, but since I can't web, it's time for the old hit and run tactic. Uppercutting the doctor and spamming counter to match his attack spam, I can deal just enough damage to enrage Otto and force him to flee. He doesn't flee alone though, grabbing Peter's aunt as a hostage because Peter has the worst luck ever. Who knew helicopters could be so fast as I struggle to keep up with Otto, and too many times does it either escape or cut me up badly and then still escape. Finally, I can just barely keep up to it and it lands to drop off Aunt May on a train track. Grabbing her just in the nick of time, Aunt May thankfully doesn't have a heart attack from the stress, and I can go help Black Cat track down Shocker. You might be wondering, why Black Cat and I are working together again after she stole that statue right under my nose. But she explains that she already gave it to the police. Does Peter check that information at all? Nope. He just believes her like every other time. Oh well, Shocker's a bigger fish to fry, so I suppose we'll take the Master Thief at her word. Fighting Shocker is super straightforward as the vibrating villain doesn't have the best offense, but he insists on blasting the entire area around him every few hits. Note to self, the range is bigger than one would think, and it's very painful. He gives lots of warning every time, so rushing in, uppercutting him, and then rushing right out before I can get flattened makes for an easy win. The much bigger threat is when Mysterio pops up again, this time trying to rob a convenience store by his lonesome. I quiver in fear at his awe-inspiring presence. No, not really. While he babbles on, I do some shopping, and I see about getting those eggs for Aunt May before taking down Fishbowl Head in one punch. Blue Beetle would be so proud if he could see this. Now it's time to follow Black Cat back into another encounter, and that means bad luck for my health. It's a weapons deal, and the weapons are high-tech armor suits, so my odds aren't too great, especially with nearly every enemy packing guns. I'm glad Black Cat is here to draw some of the fire off of me, but it's just not enough as I can't keep that many enemies off balance, and down I keep going. Letting Black Cat distract the majority, I do take the fight to the smaller group on the side, and after barely surviving them, I try to let Black Cat handle everything for me. She's not doing so well. but she sure is persistent. Probably shouldn't have tried to play hero and help her, cause all that serves to do is make this spider go splat. A few more painful ends for our hero, and I can finally cut it super close by using the genius technique of running in circles around the armored unit so it struggles to target me. All this constant dying and near deaths is no good for my heart, so it's time to cut off the partnership with Black Cat and go back to solo work. Just in time too, as Dr. Octopus remembers this is supposed to be his game. He needs to give Harry Osborn Spider-Man, so Harry will give him the final piece to his project. Best way to do that is track down Peter Parker, since he's always taking pictures of Spidey, and get him to tell Otto where Spider-Man is. So what does Otto do? Chuck a car directly at Peter and MJ while they chat in a cafe. Ever since I was little, I have not understood his genius plan here. He needs Peter alive and doesn't know Peter has superpowers, which is the only reason Peter survives having a freaking car chucked at him. It's a dramatic introduction for sure, and it worked out, but it seems to be a tad detrimental to his entire plan. Not like he's mentally sound right now, to be fair. Now that Otto has kidnapped MJ, something he couldn't have done if he had crushed her with that car, I'm just saying, Spider-Man gives chase and fights him in an iconic train battle. The biggest difficulty in this fight is how hard it is for me to get on the train at all. Well, that and getting thrown in front of the train. Otto himself is surprisingly a bit of a pushover, even as I avoid using my webs like the game wants me to. Punch him a couple times, dodge a bunch, punch a bunch more, and soon enough, his health will be drained enough for me to lose. No good supervillain leaves their plan down to a fist fight after all. Otto jumps away, letting Spider-Man pass out from the strain of stopping this fast-moving train, which makes him an easy capture. Harry isn't up to killing his best friend though, once he realizes Peter and Spider-Man are one and the same, so that makes for an easy escape. I rush to stop Otto from destroying half of New York in his crazed experiment. Otto is as easy as ever, with the real threat being the danger of water. Someone really needs to teach Peter how to swim, or at least he needs to bring Namor along with him next time. But avoid drowning, and Otto is no threat, taking my place underwater as he regains his sanity and drowns both himself and his project. Huzz! A half huzzah, as 13 web attacks were vital to beating Mysterio's competition, but that's the only time they're needed. After 10 deaths in 5 hours 37 minutes, we can confirm there is no beating 2004's Spider-Man 2 without web attacks. But we're not done yet, as we now need to swing back into action, now armed with our webs, but missing out on all the upgrades one gains throughout the game. By mid-game, my upgraded counter spin kick had proved super vital, so that above all, I'll miss dearly. But I'm already enjoying flinging thugs around with my webs. More importantly, in this run, I actually make it to work at the pizza parlor in time. Now I can melt my brain with the world's greatest work music. The pizza is smashed after all my flipping, but I took off before the customer could notice, so I think I'm in the clear. Hopefully, he never questions why Spider-Man just dropped his pizza off and doesn't call the store. Spider-Man delivering the pizza that Peter Parker was supposed to have, while Peter is also the noted photographer of Spider-Man, might make people ask one too many questions. Hopefully, he just enjoys his squished pizza in blissful ignorance. Unfortunately, as has been commented, there is no getting past grabbing a few upgrades as they are mandatory for the game to continue. Mostly, it's just increased swing speed, but I do also have to learn how to grapple enemies. I may have to learn the upgrade, but I will not be using it, so it'll be like I never gained it at all. I do have one big wonder about these upgrades though. Why do I have to go into department stores where they sell what looks to be shoes and clothes in order to learn fighting moves and web slinging techniques? Is Nick Fury or Captain America the cashier here as a second job? Is Madam Web the manager? These are questions I'm going to the grave with, I suspect. Well, that, and wondering if this injured civilian is purposely copying injured Peter Griffin, or if my brain has just rotted away completely. Something I should wonder about while bringing her to safety, I suppose. Most of the combat in the early game isn't anything to write home about, as obviously no upgrades means the challenge really begins the longer the game goes. The battle with Mysterio is much easier this time, as even if I don't grapple, I can whip the thugs all over the place, taking a very heavy lead against Mysterio. I feel so good about this that for the first time ever, I even let the crying kid have the balloon instead of stealing it, which I think really proves how great and amazing I am. Great, amazing people always talk about how awesome they are, right? They must, as I do it all the time. When Mysterio's invasion begins again, I stop the robots with ease, but take far more damage to the fire. Funny how having nearly full health causes me much more pain than being near death, as I'm far less cautious fighting. Going into Mysterio's lair, I handle his clowns no problem, but I begin to panic fighting the spider reflections. They won't stop coming, and I'm certain this will be the first death of the run, but I'm not going to make it easy. I try to fight every reflection that pops in, but that makes no difference since they won't stop spawning, which means it's back to rushing to break the mirrors before I'm overwhelmed. I'm breathing heavily by the time it's over, and I have so little health that I can't even see it. But somehow, I am alive. Seeking to stay that way, I avoid helping anyone that's under attack. I can't help anyone after all if I can't stay alive. Turns out, while trying to take the safe route and rescue people from a sinking boat, I just can't help anyone at all. The boat is so hard to jump to, especially without the web zip upgrade, and I'm forced to watch as a lone civilian sinks. Abandoning the cops to gunfire, I heroically chase down a balloon, giving it up to a kid and gaining all my health back. Phew! Lots of people may have died, but I survived, and that's what matters, right? Only for a minute later, I'm killed 4 times in a row when I try to disable Doc Ock's out-of-control machine. I did not realize that the first time I did this was purely luck. Turns out there's a pattern to the outburst that changes every time I shut one of the 4 power switches off, and I'm quite slow to learn that pattern, with the 5th time leaving me near death. Just for a car chase right outside of the building to finish the job when my controller disconnects at the exact moment I need to dodge a bullet. I'm starting to think this is all karma. I'm very bad at learning my lesson, as shortly after I battle Doc Ock, and when the odds go against me, I may or may not have taken refuge behind the elderly and fragile Aunt May. If it means anything, the old broad is quite a bit more durable than she looks, and well, I'm not. With my web available, I try to web down Otto's arms so it's easier to fight him, but my brain breaks, making me an easy target when I dodge too soon. Ock is quick to flee at least, but I'm quick to dive headfirst into helicopter blades, so that victory did not last long. I took longer to start dying this run, but now that we're in the later game, I'm making up for lost time, even dying to Shocker. How embarrassing! Turns out having an upgraded counter and being able to juggle my enemies in the air for way longer would prove more useful than having access to web attacks. For melee fights anyway, not gun ones. That weapon deal that I foil with Black Cat goes way better this time when I pull my enemies off their feet and keep them from opening fire. Plus now I'm a lot more proficient at circling the armored units so they can't blast me, meaning this time I managed the skirmish in one go. What is a problem though is discovering that Dr. Octopus's first fight struggle wasn't a fluke, and he really is much harder now. Tying my hands behind my back and not allowing webbing had actually worked in my favor as I focused much more on dodging and attacking. Now I'm focused on dodging, webbing, and attacking, and that one change is making me stupid. Well, stupider. Still, Otto's not nearly the same level of threat that Water is, as his machine keeps bumping me off while I try to deactivate it, and I drown the moment I hit the water. Is Peter an evil witch? Is he allergic to water now? The ability to web zip really made things a lot easier in the first run, and I'm missing it heavily as I struggle to get around as fast, costing me lives as I try to shut down the machine. Locking in at minimum health, I carefully avoid everything the room throws at me, including Dr. Octopus, till the machine is subdued and it's just me and Octavius, only for him to immediately ragdoll me into the void. 1, 2, 3, 4 times I meet my demise at Otto's cold metal arms, only for it to finally click that I'm focusing on the yellow flashes of his arms and not the spider sense flash on my head. Forcing myself to stare at Peter's head, I finally get the timing right far more often and can web up his arms and take down the supervillain. Huzzah! After 18 deaths in 3 hours, 57 minutes, I've beaten all of 2004's Spider-Man 2 without using upgrades, other than the mandatory ones of course. That's 9 hours, 34 minutes total spent on these 2 challenges, with the no upgrades challenge being the shorter, but more fatal challenge. Thank you very much for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed both challenges. Thank you again for the recommendation. I'm off now to harness the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, because I figure Otto almost had it right, and I'm sure my lack of genius can do what his genius couldn't. What could go wrong anyway? Hopefully, I'll see you later, friends. Up, and away, web!